Hey, this is Mike Robbins. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I hope you're doing well, you, your team, your family, everyone around you. Today I'm recording audio and video, which I don't normally do. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. You can check out the YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're here on YouTube, just hit subscribe. So let's dive into today. I want to talk about something that I've touched on in different ways over the years here on the show and in my work, but that is going for it. Just really, putting ourselves in the arena, as I was talking about a few months ago here on the show. But I've been thinking about this in a couple different ways. Um, our daughter Samantha just graduated from high school this past week as I'm recording this, and it was exciting, a big deal. Our baby girl is graduated and heading off to college, which is a big deal. I mean, her younger sister still has 3 more years of high school. But as I was sitting at graduation, I was just thinking about all the kids graduating, not only Samantha's high school, but all the other high schools around the country and around the world and colleges and graduations, kind of like weddings and even funerals in a lot of ways, are these momentous occasions, these big moments in life, births, deaths, graduations, weddings, celebrations like that. And, you know, everybody has different journeys through school, right? And I was thinking about my own graduations. I was thinking about, so much of what happens when we're trying to accomplish something is there's ups, there's downs, there's twists, there's turns, there's fears and doubts. And, it doesn't always go perfectly. It doesn't always go the way we want it to go. It usually doesn't unfold exactly the way that we plan on it. But ultimately, our ability to get to those milestone moments, our ability to accomplish the things we want to accomplish and experience the things we want to experience in life have to do with a willingness to go for it. Another thing I've been reflecting on in recent days and weeks, again, as I'm recording this, we've just lost a handful of sports legends. Bill Walton died a few weeks ago. Jerry West, great basketball player, the logo of the NBA, died last week. And just yesterday, as I'm recording this, Willie Mays passed away, arguably the greatest all around baseball player of all time, and a really big deal across baseball and across sports, but especially here in the Bay Area. He played for the San Francisco Giants for much of his career, starting in New York, playing for the Giants out there before they moved to San Francisco. And when I think about great athletes, or I even think about myself and all those years playing baseball and playing sports, so much of what sports is about is, yeah, you have to have some talent and some ability to play the sport, but it's literally getting in the game and going for it, knowing that even when you're really good, you're going to fail. So, whatever it is that we're up to in life, whether it's, at work, in leadership, with our own business, with our employees, whether it's at home, in our families, our relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our siblings, whether it's, creative projects or endeavors, whether it even has to do with changes we want to make with respect to our health or habits that we have. When push comes to shove, what it really is about is going for it. It's about taking action, right? It's about putting ourselves in the arena. And that's not always easy to do, right? There's a lot of fear that we have. But, what's the great saying? I think it came from Wayne Gretzky, arguably the greatest hockey player of all time. I missed 100% of the shots that I never took. And that's true, right? We can't make the shot if we don't take it. And when we do go for it in life, when we do put ourselves out there, there's a chance we could fail. There's a chance we could get hurt. I mean, this is really what vulnerability is all about, right? How does Brene Brown define vulnerability? Risk, emotional exposure, and uncertainty. Those things are uncomfortable. They take courage, right? But can we put ourselves at risk? Can we embrace the uncertainty? Can we emotionally expose ourselves? Not that we have to broadcast it to the whole world, but are we willing to let the people around us know what's really going on? We just saw the great movie Inside Out 2 on Father's Day, and I love the first one. I love the second one, but so much of that movie, if you've seen it or going to see it, right, it's about all of our emotions, the full range of emotions, joy and sadness, right? Anger and contentment, gratitude, and anxiety, right? The whole range. They're all important. They're all necessary, even if some may feel better than others. But can we embrace those things? I've probably shared this before on the show, but I've been speaking professionally for 24 years now, or this is year 24, I should say. So I'm in the middle of that year, but I've done this for a long time. I love doing it. And sometimes I'll speak at an event, especially a big event, and I'll have people say things, some version of, it's so amazing that you can get up on stage like that and not get scared. And my response is, what are you talking about? Of course I get scared. Like, I'm human just like everybody else. Like, I just spoke in front of 3,000 people. There was a lot of attention on me. Like, my knees were shaking, my heart was racing. And I don't say it to be cavalier about it or dismissive or self-important or arrogant. It's just I've learned how to manage the fear and work with the fear, that it doesn't stop me from doing it. It doesn't render me unable to get up on the stage and share the ideas and the stories and the concepts that I want to share with the group. I've just learned a number of techniques for how to channel the energy of that fear in a way that doesn't take me out of the game, so to speak. I had to learn the same thing as an athlete. And again, we all do this in life, whether you get up and speak on stages in front of hundreds or thousands of people or not. There's a lot of things that you do that you've mastered, but you've figured out how to navigate the fear, the discomfort, the uncertainty of doing whatever that is. I mean, even driving a car, right? Our younger daughter, Rosie, has her permit and she's in the process of learning how to drive. And if you've ever taught someone how to drive, you are often easily reminded of, wow, like there's a lot going on. There's a lot to break down. And when you're sitting there across from your adolescent child who's behind the wheel of the car and you're in the passenger seat, like you're very aware of, well, this is a vulnerable experience because someone who doesn't have a lot of experience driving is now driving. But again, we get in the car for better or worse unconsciously and just go places and don't even remember getting there. We just end up there because we've done it so much. We've transformed the fear of that. And it's not to say that it doesn't pop up from time to time. If something happens or someone, changes lanes without putting their blinker on or whatever, we have moments in the car where we realize, oh, this is actually a really important, dangerous endeavor that I'm doing. So I need to be mindful. But because we've trained ourselves not only with the skill of driving, as an example, right, but navigating the emotional aspects of it, dealing with the fear of it, it doesn't have to be something that terrifies us, right? So, where are there areas in your life or with your work where you see that you do go for it, even if there's some fear, some discomfort? You move through that and take the risk anyway. You ask for the sale, you have the conversation, right? I mean, you've heard me say so many times on this show something that was told to me many years ago. What stands between us and the kind of relationships we really want to have with people is usually a 10-minute sweaty palm conversation that we're too afraid to have. But having those sweaty palm conversations is essential for our relationships, for our teams, for leadership, for resolving conflicts, for working stuff out, for getting to better solutions, for talking about sensitive topics or the elephant in the room or whatever it may be. And the truth is, most of the time, I don't really want to have those sweaty palm conversations. I don't know too many people that love them. They're hard, they're scary, they're uncomfortable, they could go sideways. People can get upset. But are we willing to go for it? Is the relationship, is the team, is the goal more important than simply our need for comfort? That's what we have to ask ourselves, right? So, what are some things that you can do to more effectively go for it, to more effectively get yourself into the arena, so to speak, to put yourself out there, to take the shot, to whatever metaphor we want to use, whatever the case may be? The first thing that's important for us to identify is, what is it that we want, right? We're going for what? I know it sounds kind of simple and basic, but it's like the thing has to be clear and important to us. I have that goal. This is important for me or for the team or for my family or for the mission or the vision that we have. So identify what it is. And right, it's got to mean something to us. It's got to matter to us. Otherwise, why would we push through any discomfort? Why would we navigate through the fear or the resistance? The second thing that's important for us to do is acknowledge how we feel. And usually, when it comes to really going for something important, we're going to feel some fear. We're going to feel some resistance. We're going to feel, it could even be sadness or regret from either not going for it in the past or going for it in the past and it not working out, right? So we might even have not only fear, but some trauma from I've tried this many times, or I remember, usually again, you could have 10 or 20 or 50 positive experiences and one really negative one. And the way that our brain and our nervous system is wired and designed, we're going to remember that negative one. So, what is it that we want and that we're willing to hopefully go for? And then how are we actually feeling? And be real with those feelings, right? There was a great book written by Susan Jeffers years ago called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So really feel the fear. And by the way, there's a difference between genuinely feeling our fear and being obsessed in our fear story. Eleanor, my counselor, says to me all the time, feel the feeling, drop the story. So a fear story is the worry and the what about this? What about that? What about this? And last time it's a lot of conversation, it's a lot of thoughts, it's a lot of heady stuff. Feeling our fear is really getting into the emotion of it. If you just allow yourself, even like close your eyes and say, I give myself permission to feel afraid, to feel scared. Just because I feel scared doesn't mean I am scared. There's a difference between feeling a feeling and an actual state of being. We use words in a way that we could be more mindful about. It's not I am fear, it's that I have fear, I feel fear. I'm feeling afraid right now versus I'm scared. And I know that sounds like semantics, but that's different. When we take it on as an I am, that becomes more of a way of being as opposed to, oh, I'm feeling some fear, just like I'm feeling some anger or some sadness, or maybe I'm feeling some love and some joy. Feelings come and go, they ebb and flow. They're really powerful, but they're also not constant. They're not fixed. It's not like a chair in the room. It's a feeling that moves through us, right? So identify what it is that we want, what we're going for, and why it matters. Feel our feelings, be real about it. A third thing that we can do to really support us in going for it is get some support, specifically accountability. One of the things, and I've talked about this a lot here on the show before, but for me to do stuff that's scary or that's hard or that's big, I don't know, like write a book, even though I've done it 5 times, every time as I'm thinking about my next book, and I do have an idea for that next book, there's fear, there's resistance, there's, am I ready to do this? Do I have the time, the space? Am I really willing to put myself through that process? We need to have some kind of support and accountability outside of us. It's the whole phenomenon. Again, you've heard me say this before, but throwing our hat over the wall metaphorically, and either we're just going to lose the hat or we got to figure out a way to climb over the wall to get the hat. But having that accountability, putting it out there, declaring I'm going to do this by when, making a commitment or a promise to someone else, that often gets us into action in ways that maybe we might be resistant. Again, it's meeting someone at the gym versus going on your own. Not that you can't go on your own, and that's fine. But if I'm really wanting to make sure that I go, let me meet my friend or my trainer at the gym. That's going to create the accountability for me to show up. If there's a risk that I want to take, but I'm afraid to take, if I make a commitment to someone else or I do it with someone else, then I'm more likely to actually take that risk versus just listen to the fear stories in my head that have me not do that. And then the fourth thing, which is related to the accountability and something that I talk about very often and is usually part of any process we want to take in terms of change or growth, is ask for help. The answer is always no if you don't ask. So when we ask other human beings for help, for support, again, whether it's around accountability or just in terms of, hey, I'm feeling scared about this thing. I want to go for this. I want to try this. I want to ask for this promotion. I want to start a new business. I want to, whatever it is. There's other people who've done that. Maybe not the exact thing that you're doing, but pretty close. This idea of like, we didn't invent the problems that we're facing. We didn't invent the challenges in front of us. There's other people who've dealt with these same challenges. And while that's a simple concept, it's a really powerful one. So who in our lives can we ask? And look, nowadays with the nature of the internet, with artificial intelligence, you could go ask ChatGPT, right? You can go pose a question on social media in more of a open-ended way, but there's usually people, specific people in our lives, people that we work with, friends, mentors, coaches, counselors, people around us who we can talk to and say, here's what I'm wanting. Here's how I'm feeling. I made this promise or this commitment. I have this accountability, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to get this done. I'm not really sure if I have what it takes. I'm not really sure, fill in the blank. right? Michelle and I just celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary last week, and I was thinking about how scared I was to get married. I was terrified. My parents had split up when I was 3. Michelle's parents had split up when she was 7. So many people that I knew growing up, their parents had gotten divorced, and my mom and my dad never remarried, so I never saw the model of a healthy relationship with my parents. And I'm not saying that to blame them or throw them under the bus. They had their own life and their own issues and their own challenges. It was just my personal experience was I don't know if I have what it takes to be a husband. And if we ended up having kids, which we did right away, I'm not sure I have what it takes to be a father. And I loved Michelle. I wanted to be with her. I felt that fear. I was terrified and I did it anyway. And, 19 years later, has it gone perfectly? Absolutely not. There's been lots of ups and downs and twists and turns. But I think about that and I feel a sense of pride and gratitude that I was willing to go for it. I was willing to take the risk. The truth is, there's no guarantee when we go for it. There just isn't, right? And as I'm thinking about some of these great iconic athletes who've just recently passed away, like even the greatest athletes, even the people with the most physical prowess and ability, right? All of us ultimately know where this physical life ends. And while we don't like to think about it or talk about it because it can freak us out or seem morbid, it's just like we're going to die at some point. Hopefully, many, many years from now with a long, healthy, wonderful life, but we don't know that, right? Just like the answer is always no if we don't ask, we miss 100% of the shots we never take. We waste a lot of time and energy worrying about stuff, giving into those fear stories, not going for it because we're afraid we'll fall on our face, we'll make a fool of ourselves, it won't turn out. You and I have all made it through 100% of every single challenge and disappointment we've ever faced. Now, I'm not saying that hasn't been hard at times or painful. I've had some pretty painful disappointments and losses in my life, as I'm sure you have. And I'm a human being like everyone else, and those fears come up and those resistances show up, and I'm not always feeling courageous enough in the moment to go for all the things that I want. But the question for us to ask ourselves is why not? What would our lives look like if we weren't so afraid to fail? What would our careers look like? What would our relationships and our families look like? Again, when we get in the arena, when we put ourselves out there, we can fail, we can get hurt, things can go sideways and not the way we want to. And that's not fun and that's not easy. But if we don't put ourselves out there, if we don't get in the game, we're not going to be able to get what we want and experience what we want to experience. So have as much compassion with yourself as you possibly can. But as you think about this for yourself, as well as your teams and your families and the most important people around you, can you really identify what it is you want individually and collectively? Can you be honest about how you feel and whatever fears or doubts or other emotions might be coming up and really feel those things and acknowledge them authentically, directly? Can you create some accountability support around yourself that's going to make it more likely that you're willing to go for it and take the risk, even if it's scary? And can you ultimately ask for help and support and mentorship and guidance and compassion and advice from the people around you who love you, who know you, who've maybe been through something like this before? Have you ever noticed, by the way, it's so much easier to support other people to take risks and go for it than it is to actually do that yourself? Yeah, because that doesn't require the same level of courage or vulnerability. And if we do all those things with compassion, with appreciation for ourselves, with a sense of understanding that this is part of being human. And if we really want to have the kind of lives we want to have, if we really want to do the kind of work we want to do, if we really want to create the kind of things that are most important to us in our lives, figuring out how to navigate through the process of going for it is essential to just about everything. So, thanks for listening and watching. If you watch this on YouTube, I appreciate it as always. If you're listening, there's a bunch of links in the show notes here on the podcast where you can connect with me on social media and other places. Make sure to hit the subscribe button in whatever podcast app or platform you happen to listen to this on. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button to the YouTube channel because I do put videos out in addition to podcasts on a pretty regular basis. So remember, we're all in this thing together. I look forward to connecting with you next.